Hi everyone! We have a very special episode for you. Scalpels and Spreadsheets recently hosted an event called She Speaks Health, where Orchid Jahanshahi gave a keynote presentation on the next wave of pharma innovation in Canada. Orchid is the founder of ThinkrBelle, an advisory firm helping pharma and health tech companies towards faster innovation. She comes with 30 years of experience in global pharma before pivoting towards AI startups and combines a unique blend of experiences. In this episode, Orchid explores what it takes to build your own company and when to take risks. Enjoy this one.
Thank you, Meg. Yes, of course. Okay, so one of the things that I do is coach founders to do things in 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and it's really, really hard. And I have to say, it's virtually impossible for me to do. So I've been negotiating time with Aman, but I'm going to try to keep it within 10 minutes. But thank you. I don't know you guys that well, but what I'm seeing is such a wonderful, collaborative, connective kind of environment. Obviously, you've got tons of supporters. There are a million things that we could be doing on the tech space, AI space, pharma space. And unfortunately, most of them are biased towards one versus another. And what I'm seeing here is that you're not here to raise money, you're not here to look at the tech, and it's really, truly a collaborative event, and I'm very excited. Thank you for including me. So I also decided to change the title of my talk. Sorry, guys, Aman's never going to invite me again. But yeah, so I mean, AI, I threw that out before. Obviously, there's AI in everything. There's going to be AI in, well, there's already AI in TED. I actually think that using the word AI is now very obvious, and it's not really descriptive. What we're trying to do is really create innovation. And one of the things that I'll be talking about today is really trying to get all this stuff that we're doing here, built here, to scale a little bit more in Canada and create the value in Canada before we rush to the US. Now, people who know me well, I think there's like 2 people who remember, I've been saying this for probably 25, 30 years. When I worked in the US and pharma, I had the big Canadian flag and annoyed everybody. So this is not a Trump talk. It's actually something that's been bugging me for a long time. And thank you for letting me reveal myself on this today. I won't talk about myself too much except to say that I also became an angel investor after I left the tech companies. And that's really given me an incredible ability to try to support underrepresented founders, not just women founders, and that's something that really jazzes me up, and I can see some of them right here, so thank you for that. So today, I want to change your mindset a little bit, and there are no references on here, but I have references for almost everything. And you'll notice that I'm very much a generalist. I say things sometimes a little bit too broadly, too exaggerated, but these are things that have been bugging me for the last 3 years since I've gotten into this space. And I just want to make sure, and the Trump situation, the 51st state, made me realize that we are behaving like the 51st state. We can blame someone for pointing a problem and doing it really badly in terms of a solution, but we're acting like that 51st state. I haven't talked to anyone recently who's planning an amazing trip to Les Îles de Madeleine, but I still talk to people who are planning trips to Rhode Island. Those things are just part of the way we are. But we play it safe. We don't risk a lot. I want to talk to you a little bit about pharma specifically, because you have to understand that there's a lot of opportunity right here with local pharma. I'm not talking about global people in Switzerland. We're talking Toronto, Montreal. Creating value for our tech companies right here. I'm going to steal something that my friend Bryce always says, bootstrapping is sexy. He's become my mentor, and he can say it because he sold his company, Win Mobile, for like billions of dollars. So he knows what he's talking about. And it's really, the timing is now. So why Canada? Why am I saying all this? So this is really the summary slide. We are in the middle of the AI innovation. You don't know how many pharma companies I talk to at all levels that are saying, yeah, we got this. We got our people up in our head office in Switzerland or Chicago. They're figuring this out. No, it's here. And I'm not talking about biotech. I just want to make sure we're not talking about early stage drug discovery. We're talking about health tech companies that you see here. And they are not aware of how big health tech is. And the reason is because pharma's always had that compliance thing between commercial and medical. But we need to do better in trying to grab those opportunities. We are a massively diverse population. I want to take a picture of this. I don't see this diversity when I go to New York, not even San Francisco, definitely not most of the US. So for a clinical trial, we need diversity. I just spoke with someone who's heading up a pharma company who's launching ADHD drugs in Canada finally, because there's only one, and there's been tons in Europe that we don't even know about. Why? Because these drugs were done on boys. These trials were done on boys, never with women. That's a very simple part of diversity. But the fact that we have this incredible population that we could do trials with needs to be exploited, because there's no country in the world that can have that. The collaboration and the ethics of it, I mean, we obviously have a huge ecosystem here. The talent pool, I think there's one company that's really capitalizing on Canadian talent, I would say actively. AstraZeneca is actually hiring people in Toronto for their global roles, which I really commend, but that's rare. We lose our talent almost all the time. And obviously the stability, you know, we have issues for sure, but we don't have the situation where there's no trust in our geopolitical system. So these are all things that really make the timing perfect. And I'm not going to go through all this except the fact that the most expensive part of bringing a drug to market is really the commercialization piece. Everyone gets excited about the first two, discovery, you know, protein genomics, DNA folding, all this stuff. Yes, every CDL venture I see is doing something in that area, and that's great. We're bringing drugs to market faster. But the people sitting in Canada are really going to be commercializing drugs, and 70% of their budgets, of the budget of a brand, is really around certain things that could be very easily techified. For instance, patient support programs, which is a very unique feature of the Canadian pharma system, because no one is paying for these things in terms of the healthcare system. Pharma companies pay for it. And I don't know if there's anyone here from the big, you know, McKesson or Innomar, I apologize saying this, but we have to get out of the usual vendors. We have to look at these small companies that are bringing solutions into it, again, to save money, to have cheaper drugs in the long term, and actually do things for patients. So that's where we spend time at ThinkrBelle. We've got a couple of ThinkrBelles here. And I think Angela may be here as well. I just want to point out that that first picture, these are some things about how tech can actually solve some of the pain points that we saw on the last slide. And one of them is access to something that triages patients or to assesses patients. And the first picture is actually from Skinopathy, one of the companies that I'm quite engaged with. But I'm pointing out Angela Johnson. She was supposed to be here. Anyways, she's got one for menopause. So these are tech innovations that you may not be creating for pharma, but pharma needs it. Why? Because you will have data in there, because you will have a companion to the drug that they're selling. Maybe you can find out what side effects or patient journey. All of those things pharma spends money on, and they don't go to you. They go and buy it from consultants. And I'm sorry if we have big consultants here, but again, you know, it's the McKinsey and Deloitte that we hear is taking that opportunity away. Second, you know, there are companies that are doing virtual reality, and of course, you know, if you have a virtual reality for someone who's got Alzheimer's, great. Wearables we know about, again, for real-world evidence, and lately there's been quite a few tools with respect to sales effectiveness, and also sales coaching, all of that, what we could use tech for. And just on this slide, I just want to point out that local pharma is very unique here. We've got some members here. Neil M., who's going to be on stage. We are very different from the pharma folks we see outside of here. And the reason I say that is because one of us is 10 people in the US. So we have to be generalists. We go to the US like I did, and I'm like, oh, I have to talk to this person for the patient stuff and that person for the advertising. No, we are generalists, and this is the era of the generalist. Everything else could be looked at through ChatGPT. So as long as you are smart, you can really do well here. So these are people who will see the opportunities and move them through their organizations. So I'm going to stop there to just change tone a little bit. What do you think these Canadian successful companies have in common? Anyone? Any ideas? Anyone want to guess? So our topic is bootstrapping now. So all of these companies spent at least 3 years, I think one of them 11 years, with showing revenue and bootstrapping before they became giants. And again, I want to go back to my friend Bryce, who does these talks across the country, and this is his quote: every bootstrapped founder wants more capital, every funded founder wants more control. That control piece is not small. You lose control when you take money, especially if you take money from institutional investors that don't have your mission, that don't have your vision, and don't necessarily like what you're doing. And so what I've decided to say, because I'm not a VC person, I spend a lot of time with the investment community, I spend a lot of time with ventures, but what I really think we should be doing is to spend the time and energy to build that revenue piece. It is not that hard to find a paid project, and don't call it pilot because you'll be stuck in pilots forever. Bring it from proof of concept to the MVP and then scale up. And that is the time to go and ask for that money. And this is actually his slide where he says, I recommend entrepreneurs start lean, only go fat if the product market fits. So again, there are things that we could do here. I want to point out Shopify is actually the biggest success. Who has not heard of the Ottawa company Shopify? They built it in Canada. They built it for Canada. They had a use case that made sense. They wanted to have everyone have online stores, and they were, I think, 4 or 5 years without any injection of VC, and they're doing quite well at $90 billion. I think that's double the size of most companies that are giants in pharma. So again, the takeaway is let's just leverage that to build here. Last section is about the myths, and these are just personal thoughts that I have about why we think the way we do. And I feel like these myths are everywhere, and if you haven't heard of them, I'd be shocked, because every day that I hang out at some of these ecosystem meetings, this is what gets told to us. I know we have someone from Mars here. I don't want to put down Mars, but the first talk at Mars this year was, there's no money in Canada, you have to go to the US. Myth number one, and the myths are on the startup side, on the pharma side, and also on the investor side. So startup people say a lot of things about product-led growth. That definition, a little bit changed over the years. We are not Steve Jobs, and we don't know that people need 10,000 somethings in their head. I think we all think that as tech companies, we want to create something and just make it fit. In pharma, that does not work. It fails miserably. I've seen it, and we have to spend the time to have these needs that they have. In that previous slide, they have a lot of needs. Spend the time and go specific to those needs, not show the whole everything. The second is the grants. Now, I'm a recipient of a grant. Thank goodness I get the BioTalent grant. I love it. I'm helping students do work this year and getting paid partly for it. But grants on their own can also increase this reliance. And sadly, some of these ventures are only with grants, and it increases your runway to a certain point before you even have a market fit. And I feel that that's very dangerous for our country. And I would like to see that there's just more paid projects before grants are actually given. The third thing, I don't know if anyone has not heard that SaaS is the way to go. I'm really tired of hearing the word SaaS. Services are not bad. In fact, in the last sessions that we had with CDL, every mentor was talking about selling the services. If you're a tech founder, you know that domain, use those services to make some money in those companies and then go into your tech world. And it allows you to stay close to your users, to do back and forth user testing, design thinking, and it helps your product. And of course, there's pharma myths as well. Big pharma innovates internally with the right AI people. We know that. I see my friend Marzier. There is no AI person in any pharma company that's like you, because you would never work for that pharma company. The reality is the pharma companies cannot make this stuff themselves. They'll make it as really bulky, and it takes them years. Government will solve interoperability. Interoperability, I just learned to pronounce recently. I really hate that word. There is absolutely no way you're going to have all the data sitting from 10 provinces in all these weird places, including Epic, in one place. Microsoft has been trying to do this for 25 years with Health Vault, nowhere. This is not a tech issue. This is a reality issue and also a trust issue. I also don't trust the government to be doing that for me. I'd much rather trust a tech company that I've actually done the due diligence on and see how they are actually operating. So the change, I believe, is from the ground up. By the way, if anyone remembers Giphy, if that means you're my age, kind of. Does anyone remember Giphy? Okay, that's what happens when Microsoft creates something like ChatGPT. They almost bought OpenAI. It was like this disaster thing. You should look it up. So change is driven from ground up. And also this whole thing about AI, ethical AI, let's get scared of AI. I went to a conference, a pharma conference that looked like the last 20. And the first talk, the only talk they had on AI was a lawyer getting up and saying, we have to be careful about the data, blah, blah, blah. Absolutely, but it doesn't mean that a big company can do it better. We need to make sure that we are very ethical with our AI. Just a couple of slides. Now I'm going to bash all the investors, not the investors, but the VC people. I hear so much, venture is only successful if it goes into the US market. Yes, absolutely. Shopify, Canadian market, 5%. I get that. Only 5% of their sales is here. But the reality is, you don't need to do it tomorrow. Why do you think you have to be like Elon? Take your time. And we can be a launch pad. We can have paid partnerships. There are pharma people who would die to have you giving them something for exchange of funding, and maybe they even invest in you. So build those partnerships before you do that. This massive exit, we talked about it, everyone's rushing to the massive overvaluation. I think the best example of this that really upset me was 23andMe. 23andMe, in my opinion, is worse than the Theranos example because they took 6 years, there's no fraud here, but they took 6 years to build a $66 billion company that's worth about $130 million now through this hype, and they couldn't figure out the business model. GSK invested in them at the end. Richard Branson invested right before they fell apart. So, if Richard doesn't know what he's doing. And the last thing is the capital piece. And this is something I'm very passionate about. There are angels in this room who you can talk to that may put $20,000 into your company. Take that. If they're in the domain that you're working in, they will put their blood, sweat, and tears into it, like some of us are doing. So it's not just money. Bring people in that could give you advice and help. So that's I feel like it's very cathartic. So Canada has this incredible opportunity. We have the founders, the pharma people, the operators, the clinicians, regulators, all this stuff. I hope that we can stop exporting all of that innovation before we mature these companies. And let's go. That's it. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we have time for 2 questions. So if anyone has a question for Orchid, can anyone interested? Anyone, any takers? All right.
Make everyone angry.
Thank you.
So great talk, Orchid. The question I have for you is, obviously as an entrepreneur, I very much align to this, but who do you think are those big players here, let's just use GTA Ontario as an example, that are actually supporting? It's one thing if we're the little people, the startups going, we're proud, we're this, we're going to do big things, but what we really need is who are the big ones, whether it's pharma or whatever, that you feel are actually truly supporting, not even from money or whatever, but partnerships. Who do you feel is doing a good job in terms of supporting our startup ecosystem, the health tech ecosystem anyway?
It's a really tough question, and I have to be absolutely honest with you. I've gone up and down myself and Sigrid. I forgot to introduce my other ThinkrBelles. And Sigrid's the person, she's the beautiful redhead right here, who gave me the name ThinkrBelle. We have tried. We spent 6 months talking to Mars, to JLabs, to Obio, to LSO, to Admer. No one is interested as much. First of all, biotech is everything. But the thing is, biotech already has a connection to pharma. It's the health tech piece. I feel like the knowledge is just not there. The pharma folks themselves don't have that knowledge. So at this point, it's really, really difficult. Even in a space like patient support programs where they have a problem, they admit they have a problem, but they're still going back to the same old because the vendor will come and say, oh, if you move all these patients, they'll go away or something. So I think that it has to start from scratch. I've given up on having our government kind of bodies do it. I love those people. They help a lot. They help me. But ThinkrBelle is one of those companies that's constantly pushing this. We have certain pharma people who support us. I just want to point out, these are not specific pharma. You can't say big pharma does this. We have a very giant pharma as a customer and a tiny Canadian one. And they're both teaching us new things. And I guess the thread there, Neelam, is innovators. If people want to, you have to have a sense of who is willing to innovate. People who will come to this and say, hey, can you help me, versus pushing yourself. And you just need a couple of those because big companies have FOMO. And once you do something with one, the other ones want it. So My world is just pharma, but I would love to see even just large corporations like Petrocan. Why can't they spend a chunk of their money in ventures instead of the Canada Pension Fund? Like, that's a whole other world. But yes, honestly, I can't answer that in a positive way. Oh, yes.
If I may just make a comment, I think, as a startup, it's very tough in Canada, and we are only in Canada. So I'm totally with you. But I think what we need to do is change our collective mindset. So I've worked in the US, and there are a lot more risk takers, a lot more people who say yes, as opposed to in Canada. And I think until we get to that mindset, then people are still going to go to the States and other markets first. So
that's absolutely correct. And I just want to say I work with Canadian entrepreneurs in life science. I actually help ventures get into Silicon Valley, and I absolutely see that they're not smarter than us, but they take risk. Absolutely. But can Canadians change? I'm not sure, but absolutely. I don't want to take your time anymore. Thank you for letting us tell our story. This is the first time I've been able to tell this story, and I've been doing this for about 1.5 years, so thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. As a reminder, this podcast was recorded in front of a live audience at our She Speaks Health event in downtown Toronto. Scalpels and Spreadsheets covers the latest in healthcare innovation through events, media, and podcasting. The best place to check us out is our LinkedIn page, which is Scalpels and Spreadsheets, or our company website, scalpelsandspreadsheets.com. We'll see you at the next one.